You're not a shareholder here, Linda. You're just my husband's needy mom, so stop asking about the clinic like you own it. My daughter-in-law, Vanessa, said that to me in the middle of a restaurant. 6 months later, Vanessa's smile finally cracked when she saw my name printed on a document. As always, before we dive into a story with an ending that's going to feel really satisfying for you, let's do a quick roll call. Type present and the city you're watching from in the comments. For everyone who has liked and subscribed, I pray that Allah makes your problems easier, widens your provision, and keeps your body healthy. Thank you, my friends. Now listen carefully to my story. I'm Linda. I'm in my mid-50s, I work in finance, and I've always been the kind of mom who believes you should help your kid build something solid, something that lasts. I wasn't the drop-by unannounced and snoop through drawers type. I was the call first, bring soup, leave quietly type. I loved my son, Caleb, more than I knew how to express in words, and I tried my best to show it through action. Caleb is my only child. His dad left when he was young, and it was basically me and Caleb against the world for years. We didn't have a dramatic, movie-style life. We had a steady, normal life that I worked hard to protect. Caleb was smart, funny, and determined. The kind of kid who would take apart a broken appliance just to figure out how it worked, then put it back together better than before. When he told me he wanted to go into healthcare and someday open his own clinic, I didn't laugh. I didn't say, "That's impossible." I said, "Okay, let's map it out." And I meant it. He studied, worked crazy hours, did the residency grind, and built contacts. Over time, he grew into this calm, capable man who made me feel like everything I sacrificed was worth it. He wasn't reckless. He wasn't the type to gamble his future. So when he called me one evening and said, "Mom, it's happening. I found a location. I'm going to open my own practice," I felt my whole chest get warm. Then he cleared his throat and added, "I might need help with the initial investment." I already knew what he was asking before he said the number. $340,000, he said quietly. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't want to, because that number is the kind of number that changes the air in the room. I stared at my kitchen counter, where I'd been chopping vegetables. My hands stopped moving. I could hear the refrigerator hum like it was suddenly too loud. "Caleb," I said, careful, "that's a lot." "I know," he whispered. "I'm not asking you to ruin yourself. I'm asking if you'd consider it as an investment. You'd be paid back. I'll do it properly. Contracts. Everything. I should tell you something. I'm not stupid with money. I've spent my whole life building stability. I have retirement plans, investment accounts, and my own little set of rules. But I also knew my son. I knew how hard he worked. I knew he wasn't asking for a fancy car. He was asking for a foundation. So I said, let's talk details. Tomorrow. Bring paperwork. The next day, Caleb showed up with a folder and that earnest look he used to get when he was a teenager trying to convince me he deserved to go on a school trip. He laid it all out. Lease terms, equipment costs, staffing estimates, licensing, projected cash flow. He'd done research. He'd talked to professionals. He wasn't winging it. Then, halfway through our discussion, he said something that made me pause. "Vanessa thinks it's better if the clinic is under my name only," he said, like it was a small thing. I blinked. "Your wife? Why?" He shrugged a little too quickly. "She says it'll look cleaner. Less complicated. And she says she doesn't want anyone thinking I'm funded by my mom." That line hit me in a weird place. Not because I needed public credit. I didn't care what strangers thought. But because it felt like the first time Vanessa's opinion entered something that should have been between me and Caleb. I'd met Vanessa 2 years earlier. She was charming in a very practiced way. Always smiling, always saying the right polite phrases, always sounding like she cared. She worked in marketing, she dressed like she belonged in glossy magazines, and she had this way of making simple things feel like she was the expert and you were lucky she was explaining it to you. Caleb adored her. I tried. I really did. I didn't compete. I didn't criticize. I just observed. And what I observed early on was that Vanessa didn't like being questioned. If you asked her, "How was your day?" she'd answer like you were interviewing her. If you offered a suggestion, she'd laugh like it was cute you tried. If you disagreed, she'd get calm in this cold way that made you feel like you were the problem for not being agreeable. Still, I told myself, it's fine.
She's young.
She's confident. Caleb loves her. Not my business. So when he said, she thinks it should be only my name, I tried not to react too hard. Caleb, I said, choosing my words carefully, if I'm putting in that much, it needs to be protected. That's not about control. That's about responsibility. He nodded quickly. I know. I'll do a proper agreement. You'll be covered. Asked to meet with a lawyer. Not because I didn't trust my son, but because I trust paperwork more than feelings. A week later, we sat in an office with a calm attorney named Mr. Holloway, who explained investment structures in the most boring, comforting tone. I contributed capital. I received a formal note. There would be repayment terms. There would be a clause tied to the clinic's revenue. Will my name appear anywhere connected to the clinic? I asked. Mr. Holloway looked at Caleb. Caleb looked back at me. It can, Mr. Holloway said. Or it can remain private, and we structure it as a secured agreement. Vanessa wasn't in the room, but I felt her influence like perfume lingering after someone leaves. Caleb cleared his throat. Mom, could we keep it private? I'll still protect you. I just don't want drama. I remember staring at him and realizing something quietly painful. My son was already managing Vanessa's feelings more than he was managing mine. But I also didn't want to push him away. I didn't want him to feel like he had to choose. So I agreed to keep it private, on one condition. There is a signed agreement, I said firmly. And you will keep a copy where you cannot misplace it. Not in your house. Not somewhere Vanessa can organize it into the trash. Caleb gave a small laugh. Mom, I'm serious. Mr. Holloway, bless him, didn't laugh. He simply slid the papers across and said, we'll prepare multiple copies. One stays in my office, one with Ms. Linda, and one with Dr. Caleb. That was plant number one, even if I didn't realize it yet, a paper trail that didn't rely on anyone's mood. After that, things moved fast. The location Caleb found was perfect, close to a busy residential area, easy parking, good visibility. He hired staff. He ordered equipment. He practically lived in that building as renovations were done. When he talked about it, his eyes lit up. He looked alive. And Vanessa? She posted about it like she personally built the building with her bare hands. She'd put up photos of paint samples, furniture swatches, even a picture of a stethoscope like it was a fashion accessory. The captions were always we, but the tone was me. I tried to let it slide. Then little things started happening. Small red flags that felt too petty to argue about but too consistent to ignore. One day I stopped by with lunch for Caleb because he'd sounded exhausted on the phone. When I entered, Vanessa was at the front desk, laughing with a young woman I later learned was her cousin, Tessa, who she'd hired, temporarily. Vanessa saw me and her smile tightened a fraction. Oh, she said. You're here. Yes, I said, holding up the food bag. Caleb said he skipped breakfast again. Vanessa's eyes flicked to the bag like it offended her. We're actually doing a team lunch later. He doesn't need extra. It's just soup, I said, still trying to stay light. She leaned closer and lowered her voice. Linda, I'm trying to keep him focused. Please don't make this your routine. My mouth went dry. I wasn't trying to mark territory. I was trying to take care of my kid. But the way she said it, it made me feel like I was some clingy woman showing up to bother her husband. I didn't want to fight there in front of staff. So I said, okay, I'll leave it with him. She smiled again, like she'd won something. Great. When I finally saw Caleb, he hugged me quickly, distracted. Mom? Thanks, he said, but his eyes kept going toward Vanessa, like he was checking her mood. That was the first odd vibe that stuck with me. My son, the calm, confident doctor, looking like a boy trying not to upset a teacher. After that, I heard less and less about the clinic from him directly. If I asked how things were going, I'd get vague answers. Busy, he'd say. Lots going on. But online? Vanessa was posting constant updates, countdowns, behind the scenes, VIP invites, and little braggy hints about big investors. I remember one night, I was scrolling on my phone and saw her story, a photo of champagne flutes with text that said, "Couldn't have done it without the people who really believe in us." I stared at that and laughed quietly to myself, because I knew who had really believed in him. I knew who had wired $340,000 without telling half the world. And I was still telling myself to stay calm. Then came the first real humiliation. It was at a restaurant downtown. Caleb had asked me to meet them because we need to talk about the grand opening schedule. Those were his exact words. So I assumed I was being included. I assumed at least I'd be informed. I showed up on time, dressed nicely. I didn't want to be the embarrassing mom. I wanted to be supportive. They were already seated. Vanessa looked stunning as always. Perfect hair, perfect makeup, a bright smile that didn't reach her eyes. Caleb stood up to hug me. "Hey, Mom." "Hey," I said, smiling. "You look tired." He sighed. "I am. This has been non-stop." We ordered. I tried to keep things normal, asking about staffing, licenses, whether the city inspection passed, little details that showed I cared. Vanessa answered most of it. Caleb barely spoke. Then I finally asked the thing I came to ask. "So, what time is the grand opening?" I said. "I want to plan my day," and Vanessa's eyes flashed. She didn't even wait for me to finish. "You're not a shareholder here, Linda. You're just my husband's needy mom, so stop asking about the clinic like you own it." I swear, the word slapped me. The table next to us went quiet, like people had overheard. I felt heat crawl up my neck. My hands started shaking under the tablecloth. I looked at Caleb, waiting for him to say something, anything. He didn't. He looked down at his menu like it was suddenly the most interesting thing in the world. "Caleb," I said, voice thin. "Did you hear what she just said?" Vanessa leaned back like she'd done nothing wrong. "I'm just being honest. You always ask questions like you're entitled." "I invested money," I said, trying to keep my tone even. "I'm not asking for control. I'm asking for basic information." Vanessa let out a small laugh. "You gave Caleb money because you're his mom. That's what moms do. It doesn't mean you get to insert yourself." My stomach dropped. It wasn't even about the money anymore. It was the way she reduced it. Like $340,000 was a casual tip. Like my years of careful saving meant nothing. I turned to Caleb again. "Say something." He finally looked up, eyes tired. "Mom, can we not do this right now?" I blinked. "Not do what?" "Make a scene," he said quietly, and I felt like someone poured ice water down my back. "Make a scene."
Me.
The woman sitting there trying not to cry. The woman being insulted in public. Vanessa's lips curved.
See? Even he's saying it.
I pushed my chair back, slightly. My voice shook despite my efforts. "I'm not making a scene. I'm asking for respect." Vanessa's tone suddenly softened, like she was talking to a child. "Linda, you're being sensitive. No one is attacking you. You're imagining it." There it was, gaslighting, served with a smile. I stared at her. Then I looked at my son. "Caleb," I whispered, "you're letting her speak to me like this."
His jaw tightened.
He looked conflicted, but then he did the thing that changed something in me. He exhaled and said, "Mom, you have to understand, Vanessa is under a lot of stress." I felt my eyes sting. "So am I." Vanessa reached across the table and touched Caleb's arm like she was calming a wild animal. "We'll send you the invite when it's finalized," she said sweetly. "Okay." That was the moment I realized they weren't talking about including me. They were talking about controlling access to me. I left early, saying I had a headache. In my car, I sat with my hands on the steering wheel and stared at nothing. My heart was pounding like I'd run a mile. I drove home and cried so hard my chest hurt. Not because Vanessa didn't like me. I could survive that. I cried because my son didn't defend me. That night, I tried to call Caleb. He didn't answer. He texted later. "Let's talk tomorrow. Please don't be mad." I stared at the message and thought, mad? Caleb, I'm not mad. I'm heartbroken. The next few weeks got worse. Vanessa started controlling communication. If I texted Caleb, Vanessa would reply from his phone with a smiley face like, "He's busy. I'll tell him you said hi." If I called, she'd answer and say, "He's in the shower," or "He's sleeping," or "He's with patients." Always something. Then came the rules. "Linda, we need you to stop dropping by the clinic," Vanessa told me over the phone, voice calm. "It's distracting for Caleb." "I don't drop by," I said, stunned. "I've been there twice." "You have a habit of showing up," she said, as if she was stating a fact. "It makes the staff uncomfortable." I actually laughed in disbelief. "The staff is uncomfortable because I bring soup?" Vanessa sighed dramatically.
See?
"This is what I mean. You turn everything into drama." I gripped my phone so hard my fingers hurt. "Put Caleb on." "He's not available," she said immediately. "I'm helping him manage communication right now." That phrase, manage communication, made my skin crawl. Later, when I finally cornered Caleb on a direct call, he sounded exhausted. "Mom, Vanessa's just trying to keep things smooth," he said. "The clinic is opening soon. I can't deal with conflict." "Conflict," I repeated. "Caleb, she insulted me in public." He went quiet. Then he said, "She didn't mean it like that." My throat tightened. So she meant it. Kindly. "Mom," he groaned. "Why are you doing this? Why am I doing this?" That was the first time I realized Vanessa's version of reality was becoming his. And that was the second type of manipulation starting to show, reversing victim and perpetrator roles. "Vanessa did something cruel," I reacted, and suddenly I was the problem. I told myself to back off. I told myself I'd focus on my own life and let them handle their marriage. But I couldn't ignore the clinic investment. Not because I wanted money for shopping. Because that money was my future. That money was my retirement security. That money was years of me choosing careful, responsible decisions. And I started noticing things that made my stomach twist. Caleb stopped using words like "our agreement" and started saying "the loan." Vanessa started referring to it online as family support. And then I saw something that made my blood run cold. A marketing post from Vanessa's account featuring the clinic's branding. At the bottom, in small text, "Founded by Dr. Caleb Walker and Vanessa Walker." Founded by. Vanessa wasn't a doctor. She wasn't a medical professional. She was marketing. So why was she positioning herself as co-founder? I screenshotted it immediately. That was plant number 2, proof of how she was shaping public narrative. That weekend, I asked Caleb if we could talk face-to-face. He agreed, but insisted we meet at their house, with Vanessa present. When I arrived, the house looked perfect, clean counters, candles lit, the kind of staged comfort that screams, "We're fine here." Vanessa sat on the couch like she was hosting a talk show. Caleb sat beside her, shoulders tense. I didn't sit right away. "Caleb," I said, "I need clarity. Are you paying me back as agreed?" Vanessa smiled politely. "Of course. When it's feasible." "When it's feasible," I repeated, looking at my son. "That's not what the agreement says." Caleb rubbed his forehead. "Mom, the clinic is expensive. There have been unexpected costs." "Unexpected costs happen," I said. "That's why we planned a structured repayment." Vanessa leaned forward, eyes sharp. "Linda, you're acting like a bank. That's your son." I swallowed. I can be both. I can love my son and still protect my future. Vanessa's face hardened. "Your future? You mean your money? Always money with you." I felt my cheeks burn. "Don't twist this." She threw her hands up dramatically.
See?
This is what I tell Caleb. You come in here and interrogate him like he's a criminal. You're stressing him out. Caleb's eyes flicked to me, then to her. "Mom, can you just trust me?" I stared at him. I did. "That's why you have $340,000 of my savings." Vanessa's voice got sugary again. "If you don't want to help, you should have said no." My mouth fell open. I did help. Then stop holding it over us, she snapped. I took a breath, trying not to explode. I'm not holding it over you. I'm asking for basic respect and transparency. Vanessa tilted her head like she felt sorry for me. You're paranoid, Linda. You always assume people are out to get you. There it was again. Gaslighting, right in my face. I looked at Caleb. Are you hearing her? He swallowed. Vanessa, please. But even that wasn't defense. It was damage control. That night, I went home feeling like I'd walked into a world where my words didn't matter. And then, a few days later, I received an email notification from my bank that made my heart stop. It wasn't a withdrawal. It was an alert. New authorization request submitted. I logged in immediately. Someone had attempted to link my account to an external business payment portal. The request had been denied because of a verification code sent to my phone. Thank God I had security settings. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type. I called the bank's fraud department. The representative, a calm woman named Renee, walked me through the details. It looks like the request came from a device logged in with your email, Renee said. But the IP address is different from your usual locations. I didn't do it, I said, voice tight. Can you tell me where it came from? Renee hesitated. I can't give you exact location, but it's within the same metro area as you. My stomach dropped. Same metro area. I thought about the last time I used my laptop outside my house, at Caleb's place, where Vanessa had offered me coffee and insisted I just sit at the kitchen island, while she chatted my ear off. I felt sick. I changed every password I had. I added extra layers of authentication. And then I did something I never thought I'd need to do with my own family. I called Mr. Holloway. When he answered, his voice was steady. Ms. Linda, how can I help? I need to confirm something, I said. Do you still have the signed agreement in your office? Yes, he said immediately. It's filed and secured. I exhaled so hard it felt like my lungs had been locked for days. Good. Because something is happening, and I don't know how far they're willing to go. He didn't sound surprised. Would you like to come in and review your documents? Yes, I said. As soon as possible. That was when I stopped telling myself I was overreacting. Because if someone was trying to access my accounts, this wasn't just about hurt feelings anymore. This was about control. And Vanessa wanted it. A week before the grand opening, Caleb finally called me directly. Mom, he said, voice strained. I need to talk to you. I sat down slowly. Okay. He hesitated. Vanessa thinks it's better if you don't attend the grand opening. The room tilted. I'm sorry, I said, genuinely thinking I misheard. She says it's not the right environment, he said quickly. There will be investors, local officials, media. I am an investor, I said, my voice turning cold in a way I didn't recognize. Silence. Then he said, Mom, please don't do this. Vanessa is worried you'll say something awkward. My hands clenched into fists. Awkward. Like asking what time it starts. He sighed like I was exhausting him. Mom. Caleb, I interrupted, calm but shaking inside. I need you to listen to me. This money was not a gift. It was an investment. And you are not going to shut me out of something I helped build. He didn't answer immediately. Then, softly, Vanessa says if you come, she won't be able to enjoy her moment. Her moment. That phrase flipped a switch in me. Because this wasn't about protecting Caleb. This was about Vanessa claiming the clinic as a stage where she was the star, and I was the embarrassing background character she wanted cropped out. I swallowed hard. Okay, I said, voice flat. Caleb sounded relieved. Thank you. But I wasn't thanking him. I wasn't agreeing. I was making a decision. I hung up and stared at my living room wall, feeling this strange calm settle in. If Vanessa wanted to erase me from the grand opening, fine. But she wasn't going to erase me from the paperwork. Over the next few days, I moved.
Carefully.
Quietly. I gathered every receipt, every wire confirmation, every email thread. I printed screenshots. I compiled a timeline. I made copies and stored them in multiple places. I also asked the bank for a report on the Unauthorized authorization request. They couldn't give me everything, but they documented it as suspicious activity tied to my account. And then, when I went to Mr. Holloway's office, he pulled out my file and said something that made my stomach tighten. Even more. There's another document here, he said, flipping through pages. It appears there was an attempt to revise the terms. I froze. What? He turned the page toward me.
It was a
draft amendment with my name typed at the bottom. It looked like something I'd sign. But I hadn't. Mr. Holloway's voice stayed calm. This is not executed. It's not valid. But it exists. My lips went numb. Who requested this? He looked at the header. It was emailed from Dr. Walker's account. My chest tightened, sharp and painful. Caleb. Mr. Holloway didn't jump to conclusions. He simply said, accounts can be accessed by others in a household. I'm not accusing anyone. I'm informing you of a risk. I stared at the paper and felt my whole body go cold. Because suddenly, it wasn't just Vanessa who was a problem. It was the fact that my son had allowed her too close to everything that mattered, his emails, his finances, my trust. Mr. Holloway leaned forward slightly. Ms. Linda, I want you to understand, if you had signed this amendment, it would have significantly reduced your protections. My throat felt tight. So someone wanted me to sign away my safeguards. Yes, he said simply. I sat back, heart pounding. Then I asked the question I was almost afraid to ask. Mr. Holloway, if something happened to me, I said carefully, what would happen to the agreement? He didn't flinch. It would become an asset of your estate. It would be enforceable through your executor. I nodded slowly, and in that moment, a new fear slid into place, quiet, ugly, and real. If Vanessa was willing to tamper with documents and try to access my bank account, what else was she willing to do to remove obstacles? I drove home that day with my hands tight on the steering wheel, replaying every conversation, every smile, every polite insult Vanessa had ever delivered. I thought about how she always wanted Caleb exhausted, busy, overwhelmed, easier to steer. I thought about how she wanted me distant, quiet, embarrassed, easier to erase. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the amendment draft and the attempted bank authorization. And then, around 2 a.m., my phone buzzed. A text from Caleb. Mom, Vanessa says you've been talking to a lawyer. Why are you trying to sabotage us? I stared at the screen, heart thudding. So she was watching me, tracking my moves, and she was already setting the narrative. I'm the villain. I typed back slowly. I'm not sabotaging you. I'm protecting myself. 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, a reply. You're imagining threats again. Please stop. I stared at that sentence and felt something inside me harden. Because that wasn't Caleb's voice. That was Vanessa. And it was clear now. I was living in a story where truth didn't matter unless I could prove it. I stood up, walked into my office corner at home, opened my filing cabinet, and pulled out the one folder I hadn't touched in years, my personal legal documents. I updated my emergency contacts. I reviewed my estate plan. I made sure the agreement with Caleb was listed as a formal asset. I set up a secure lockbox at the bank for copies. I didn't do it to be dramatic. I did it because I finally accepted something I didn't want to accept. Vanessa wasn't just trying to humiliate me. She was trying to remove me. And she was using my son's love as the knife, soft, quiet, and aimed right at my throat. By the time the grand opening week arrived, I was no longer the confused, hurt mother begging for respect. I was the investor who knew a trap was being built around her and who had decided she wouldn't be the one caught in it. And as I looked at the glossy grand opening invitation Vanessa had posted online, an invite I never received directly, I whispered to myself, so quietly it felt like a secret. Fine. Have your moment. Because I'm going to have mine. Vanessa blocked me from my son Caleb's clinic grand opening even though I invested $340,000 I discovered a suspicious attempt to link my bank account and a draft amendment emailed from Caleb's account that would weaken my protections, and I realized Vanessa was already painting me as the saboteur while quietly tightening control. The morning after that text, "You're imagining threats again."
Please stop.
I woke up with this heavy, buzzing feeling in my head, like my brain had been running all night. I made coffee I barely tasted, sat at my kitchen table, and stared at my phone until the screen went dim. This is what rock bottom looked like for me. Not screaming, not collapsing in public. Just sitting alone in a quiet house, realizing my own son might be slipping out of my reach, and someone else was holding the strings. I wanted to call Caleb and demand answers. I wanted to drive to his house and pound on the door until he looked me in the eye and told me the truth. But I also knew Vanessa would love that. She'd love a dramatic moment she could record, twist, and show to people as proof that I was unstable. So I did the hardest thing. I stayed quiet. I went to work like normal. I smiled at coworkers. I answered emails. I pretended my whole life wasn't cracking underneath me. But inside, I was building a plan, not a revenge fantasy, not something messy. A plan that could stand up in daylight, in front of people, with documents and witnesses. That afternoon, I met my friend Marjorie for lunch. We'd known each other for years. She was blunt, practical, and never impressed by anyone's charm. I hadn't told her much about Vanessa before, because I didn't want to be that mother-in-law who complains. But when she asked, "Linda, what's going on with you?" my eyes started burning immediately. I told her everything. The restaurant insult, Caleb's silence, the blocked calls, the bank alert, the draft amendment. Marjorie didn't gasp. She didn't say, "Are you sure?" She didn't tell me to be the bigger person. She leaned forward and said, "Okay, so she's trying to corner you financially and socially. What's your next move?" I swallowed. "I don't know." "Yes, you do," she said. "You're a finance woman. You don't walk into a deal blind. You already know what you need." I stared at my hands. Proof. Control of the narrative. And a safe way to confront it without getting painted as crazy.
Exactly, she said.
And you're not doing it alone. That sentence hit me harder than I expected. Because for months, I'd been treated like I was too much just for asking questions. To have someone look at me and say, "You're not alone," made something unclench in my chest. Marjorie slid her phone across the table. "You said his attorney is Mr. Holloway?" "Yes." "Call him again," she said. "Ask for copies of everything, original agreements, emails, that draft amendment with headers. Ask what your legal options are. And Linda, consider that your son's email might be compromised. Don't accuse him yet, but don't protect him from consequences either." My throat tightened. "He's my son. And you're his mother," she shot back. "Which means you're the one person who's been protecting him his whole life. Sometimes protection looks like boundaries." That night, I called Mr. Holloway and scheduled a longer meeting. I also made another decision that felt humiliating, but necessary. I hired a private digital security consultant through a colleague I trusted. His name was Raymond, quiet, professional, with the kind of calm voice that made you feel less panicked. Raymond didn't promise magic. He didn't talk like a hacker in a movie. He simply asked for details. The bank authorization attempt, the dates I used my laptop at Caleb's house, the devices logged into my email, whether I'd ever used shared Wi-Fi there. "First, we secure your side," he said. "Second, we document attempted breaches. Third, we create a clean trail that shows you took responsible steps." When he said document, my brain latched onto it like a lifeline. 2 days later, I sat in Mr. Holloway's office again. This time, I didn't come in as a sad mom. I came in like a client. He laid everything out: my investment agreement, the repayment terms, and a printed copy of the draft amendment. He also had metadata, basic email header information, showing when it was sent and to whom. "What matters," he said, tapping the page, "is not only that this draft exists, but that it originated from Dr. Walker's account. Whether he sent it or someone else accessed his account, legally, the question becomes, who benefited and what actions followed?" I felt my stomach twist. Vanessa benefited. Mr. Holloway didn't disagree. He only asked, "Do you have reason to believe she has access to his email?" "She replies from his phone," I said. "And he doesn't seem to notice." Mr. Holloway nodded slowly. "Then we treat it as probable access." He then told me something that made my blood run hot. "Ms. Linda, based on the agreement, you have the right to request certain financial disclosures tied to your investment," he said. "If they refuse, you can pursue enforcement. So they can't just shut me out," I said, voice shaking. "No," he said firmly. "They've been acting like they can. But they can't." I went home that day and cried in my car for a few minutes, not from sadness, but from sheer relief. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was floating in someone else's reality. But the truth revealed wasn't done revealing itself yet. Because that Friday, my neighbor, Mrs. Wilson, sweet older woman who always watered her plants like it was a sacred ritual, waved me down as I was bringing in groceries. "Linda, honey," she said, lowering her voice, "I don't want to cause trouble, but did you send someone to your son's house last week?" I froze. "What?" "I saw a woman there," she said carefully. "She came out holding a stack of papers, and she looked angry. She was on the phone saying something like, 'She won't sign, so we have to do it another way.'" I thought maybe it was business. My mouth went dry. "Do you know what she looked like?" I asked. Mrs. Wilson hesitated. "Pretty, fancy hair, sharp clothes. Could be Vanessa." My hands went numb around the grocery bag. "Another way." I thanked Mrs. Wilson, then walked inside my house and locked the door like I was suddenly living in a different world. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I called Raymond immediately. "Someone was seen leaving Caleb's house with papers," I told him. "And she said, 'She won't sign, so we have to do it another way.'" Raymond didn't panic. "Okay," he said. "Write down exactly what the witness said, as close to the original words as possible, with date and time estimate. Then have her sign a brief statement, if she's willing." I stared at my phone. "A signed statement? From my neighbor?" "Yes," he said. "Not a dramatic letter. Just a simple witness note. This becomes part of your documentation." That was plant number 3, a witness, not just a feeling. Over the next few weeks, I rebuilt my life in a strange way. Not romantically, not with some new man saves me nonsense. I rebuilt my life with routines, evidence, and people who didn't treat my questions like a personality flaw. I went to the gym again. I started cooking properly again. I slept better because my decisions were no longer emotional. They were strategic. And I quietly started preparing for the confrontation. Because I knew something else. Vanessa loved public moments. She loved an audience. She loved events. If I wanted the truth to land in a way she couldn't twist, I needed witnesses who mattered more than her social media followers. Then, just when I thought I had time, Marjorie texted me one morning with a screenshot. "Did you see this?" she wrote. It was a post from the clinic's official page. "Grand opening and ribbon cutting. Special thanks to our founders Dr. Caleb Walker and Vanessa Walker." Ribbon cutting. And under the image, I saw the location and time plain as day. It was happening in 3 days. And I still hadn't been invited. My hands started shaking, not because I didn't know the time anymore, but because it confirmed everything. They didn't just want privacy. They wanted erasure. I called Caleb. Straight to voicemail. I called again. Voicemail. I texted. "I know the grand opening is Friday at 4. I need to talk." No response. By that evening, my phone finally rang. Caleb's name popped up. For a second, my heart lifted, until I heard Vanessa's voice when I answered. "Linda," she said brightly. "Caleb is busy. He asked me to handle this." My jaw clenched. "Put him on." She laughed like it was funny. "He can't. He's with the press consultant." "So, you're calling to tell me what?" I asked. Her tone turned icy under the sweetness. "I'm calling to tell you that if you show up on Friday, you'll embarrass Caleb. And if you embarrass him, you'll hurt his future. Is that what you want?" My throat tightened. "I invested in his future." "You invested because you wanted leverage," she snapped, dropping the mask. "But you don't get to control us." You don't get to own him. There it was, her real fear. Not money. Not business. Ownership. I kept my voice steady. Vanessa, I'm coming. There was a pause. Then she said, softly, dangerously, if you come, don't be surprised if people finally see the real you. Then she hung up. I stood there in my kitchen, phone pressed to my ear, feeling that old panic try to rise. Then I remembered Mr. Holloway's voice. They can't. And I remembered Marjorie's voice. You're not doing it alone. So I didn't go alone. The next morning, I met Mr. Holloway, and we planned the how. Not a screaming confrontation. Not an ambush with drama. A clean, public reveal. He prepared a formal notice letter summarizing my investment and my rights. He also prepared copies of the agreement, the bank alert documentation, and the draft amendment with metadata. Raymond printed a short timeline of security events and steps I'd taken. Mrs. Wilson agreed, nervously, to sign a brief witness note, and I promised her she wouldn't be dragged into anything messy. We're not going to make her feel attacked, Mr. Holloway said. We're going to make the facts unavoidable. How do I do that at a grand opening? I asked. He looked at me calmly. By choosing the right moment. Ribbon cutting. Photos. Speeches. When attention is high and lies are risky. My stomach flipped. She'll try to spin it. And you won't let her, he said. Because you won't speak emotionally. You'll speak with paper. I didn't know it would happen that soon, but the day finally came. Friday arrived with bright, perfect weather that felt almost insulting. I dressed in a simple navy outfit. Nothing flashy, nothing apologetic. My hands shook as I put on my earrings, but my voice stayed steady when I checked in with Marjorie. I'm outside, she said. I'm with you. Mr. Holloway met us near the clinic entrance. He carried a slim folder like it weighed nothing. To me, it felt like a shield. We walked in. The clinic looked gorgeous. Clean lines, bright lights, glossy signage. Staff in matching outfits. A little table with fancy drinks and pastries. Local business people chatting. A photographer moving around like a shark looking for smiles. And there she was, Vanessa. She wore a white blazer like she was the CEO of life itself. Her smile was huge. Her laugh rang out too loudly. Her eyes scanned the room constantly, tracking reactions like she was counting points. When she saw me, her smile froze. For a second, she looked like she'd seen a ghost. Then she recovered and walked toward me, heels clicking sharply. Linda, she said through her teeth, still smiling for the cameras. What are you doing here? I met her eyes. Supporting my son. Her gaze flicked to Mr. Holloway. Her pupils tightened. And who is this? She asked, voice too sweet. Mr. Holloway extended a hand calmly. I'm Harold Holloway, Ms. Linda's attorney. Vanessa's smile twitched. Attorney, she laughed lightly, loud enough for nearby people to hear. Wow. That's intense. Marjorie leaned closer to me and murmured, don't react. Vanessa turned slightly, addressing the small cluster of people who had noticed the tension. Linda gets stressed easily, she said with a little shrug. She's been worried about silly misunderstandings. I felt heat flare in my chest. Silly misunderstandings. That was her favorite trick. Make it sound like I'm irrational, then act like she's patient for putting up with me. Mr. Holloway didn't react. He only said politely, we're here to observe the event and deliver a formal notice regarding Ms. Linda's investment. The word investment made Vanessa's smile crack, just slightly. Investment, she repeated, voice higher. Linda, you gave us support. That's not. Before she could continue, a voice behind her said, Mom? Caleb had appeared, wearing a suit that looked uncomfortable on him. He looked pale. His eyes darted between me, Vanessa, and Mr. Holloway. Caleb, I said softly. He stepped closer, whispering harshly, Mom, what is this? Vanessa slipped her arm through his like she was anchoring him. It's nothing, she said quickly. She's trying to create drama on our big day. Caleb's face tightened. Mom, please. I swallowed the ache in my throat. I'm not here to ruin anything. I'm here because I've been shut out of basic information, and because there have been attempts to change our agreement without my consent. Caleb blinked. What are you talking about? Vanessa's eyes widened. Linda, stop. You're embarrassing him. My hands trembled, but I didn't raise my voice. Caleb, look at me. Have you ever drafted an amendment to our investment agreement? He frowned.
No.
Vanessa's grip on his arm tightened so hard it looked like it hurt. Mr. Holloway spoke calmly. We have a draft amendment emailed from Dr. Walker's account that would reduce Ms. Linda's protections. It was not executed, but it exists. There was also an attempted bank account linkage associated with Ms. Linda's credentials. The air shifted. People nearby stopped pretending not to listen. Caleb's face went blank. What? Vanessa laughed too loudly. This is insane.
He didn't do that.
Linda is paranoid. Mr. Holloway opened his folder without drama and handed Caleb a copy of the draft amendment and the header summary. This is the document. This is the email trail. We are not making accusations in public. We are stating facts and requesting formal transparency. Caleb stared at the paper like it was written in another language. Vanessa's smile was gone now. Fully gone. This is fake, she hissed. This is a fake document. Mr. Holloway's expression didn't change. It's traceable, and the original copy remains in my office. Vanessa's eyes flicked around the room, realizing too many people were watching. That was the moment she tried a different tactic. She turned to the crowd, voice trembling dramatically. I can't believe she would do this on our opening day, she said, eyes shining like she was about to cry. I've tried so hard to include her, but she always wants to control us. There it was, reversing victim and perpetrator roles again. But the difference this time was that she had an audience she couldn't control, and I had documents. Caleb finally looked up at me, his eyes full of confusion and something like fear. Mom, you really invested that much? My heart cracked. Yes, I said quietly. 340,000, Caleb. And I didn't ask for a stage. I asked for respect and transparency. I asked to be treated like a person, not an obstacle. Vanessa snapped. You're making it sound like we stole from you. Mr. Holloway spoke again, even tone. No one used the word stole. But Ms. Linda has legal rights tied to her investment, and she has been deliberately excluded from information and access. We are requesting disclosure and confirmation of repayment arrangements as agreed. At that moment, a man in a gray suit approached, someone important, judging by the way staff moved aside quickly. He held a clipboard. His name tag said City Business Liaison, and he looked uncomfortable. Is everything okay here? He asked. Vanessa instantly forced a smile.
Yes.
Just a family misunderstanding. Mr. Holloway turned slightly. Sir, my client is an investor, and we're delivering formal notice. We will not disrupt the event further, but we do need to confirm that her contributions are properly recorded in the business documentation. The liaison frowned. If there's an investor dispute, that should be disclosed appropriately, especially if there are public acknowledgments of founders. Vanessa's face went stiff. And then, like karma had perfect timing, the photographer called out, Founders, by the sign. Let's get a shot before the ribbon cutting. Founders. The word hung in the air. Vanessa started to move toward the camera, but Mr. Holloway stepped slightly, not blocking her physically, just placing reality in her path. Before you pose as founders, he said, calm, we'd like to clarify documentation that may affect who is represented as such. Vanessa's eyes flashed with rage. Caleb looked like he might throw up, and in the silence, I said the sentence I'd been holding for months. I didn't come here to fight, I said clearly. I came here because I refuse to be erased. People whispered. I heard someone murmur, she invested? Another voice, that's a lot of money. Vanessa's breathing got shallow. Her hands shook slightly as she adjusted her blazer. Then she leaned toward me and hissed, low enough only I could hear, You're going to regret this. I met her eyes, feeling oddly calm. No, I whispered back. You are. The ribbon-cutting moment became a tense, delayed mess. The liaison pulled Caleb aside. Staff looked confused. The press consultant kept checking her phone. Vanessa tried to smile for the cameras, but her face looked tight, brittle. And then came the payoff, clean, unavoidable. Mr. Holloway requested a brief private meeting in the clinic's consultation room with Caleb and Vanessa, with the liaison present as a neutral witness since the event was officially tied to local business promotion. Vanessa protested, but the liaison's expression said, "If this becomes messy in public, it'll be worse." Inside the room, the noise of the celebration became muffled, like we were in a bubble where the truth couldn't be drowned out by music. Mr. Holloway placed 3 things on the table. 1. The original investment agreement. 2. The draft amendment with metadata. 3. The bank alert documentation, plus my security consultant's timeline of steps. Then he slid a 4th paper forward, Mrs. Wilson's witness statement. Vanessa's face strained. "What is that?" she snapped. "A witness statement," Mr. Holloway said calmly. A neighbor observed a woman leaving Dr. Walker's residence with papers and overheard a statement indicating Miss Linda would be made to sign another way. Vanessa laughed, but it sounded broken. "This is ridiculous." "A neighbor? Are we in high school?" Caleb's voice was small. "Vanessa, why would someone say that?" Vanessa's eyes flew to him. "Because your mother is twisting everything." Caleb stared at her. "Answer the question." For the first time, I saw my son's spine try to straighten. Vanessa's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Then she snapped, "Because she's been threatening to sue us." I blinked. "I never threatened you. I asked for information." Vanessa slammed her hand on the table. "You always act innocent. You always." Mr. Holloway raised a hand slightly. Not aggressive, just stopping the spiral. "Ms. Vanessa, we are not here to argue feelings. We are here to address 3 facts: attempted changes to the agreement, suspicious account activity, and exclusion of an investor from disclosures. We are requesting immediate confirmation of the clinic's financial structure and a repayment plan consistent with a signed contract." Vanessa's eyes were glossy now. She was sweating. She looked like someone whose script had been ripped away mid-performance. Caleb picked up the draft amendment and stared at it again. Then he looked up, voice shaking. "Vanessa, did you access my email?"
She scoffed. "No."
Caleb's eyes narrowed. "Then how did this happen?" Vanessa's jaw tightened. "Maybe you did it. Maybe you forgot. You're always exhausted." Gaslighting straight at him now. Caleb flinched, like he recognized the tone. "No," he said quietly. "No, I didn't." The liaison cleared his throat awkwardly. "If there are allegations of unauthorized access, you may need to take internal steps. Also, if there's undisclosed investor involvement, that could affect the way you present your business publicly." Vanessa's voice rose. "So, now I'm being attacked on my opening day?" Nobody answered her. And that silence was louder than shouting. Caleb turned to me, eyes wet. "Mom, why didn't you tell me it got this bad?" I swallowed hard. "I tried. You didn't listen." He looked down, shame flooding his face. And then, finally, the consequences started falling into place one by one. Mr. Holloway proposed an immediate written acknowledgement, signed that day, recognizing my investment and reaffirming repayment terms with a specific schedule. The liaison suggested that if the clinic was receiving local promotional support, they should resolve any investor dispute formally and promptly. Vanessa tried to refuse. She said I was ruining everything. She said I was toxic. She said I was obsessed. But Caleb, my son, who had been silent for too long, said something that made my chest ache. "Vanessa," he said, voice low, "enough. Mom didn't imagine the bank alert. Mom didn't imagine this draft amendment. And Mom didn't imagine you blocking her from my calls." Vanessa's eyes widened in panic. "Caleb." "I want to see your phone," he said. The room went still. Vanessa laughed nervously.
"What? No."
"That's insane." Caleb's voice sharpened. "I want to see it. Right now." She stood up so fast her chair scraped. "You're choosing her over me?" Caleb's face twisted. "I'm choosing reality." Vanessa's breathing turned fast and shallow. Her eyes flicked around the room, like she was looking for an escape door. Then she did the thing manipulators do when they're cornered.
She cried.
Not quiet crying. Big, dramatic sobbing with her hands over her face, like she was the victim of an unfair world. I did everything for you, she cried. I built your brand. I sacrificed. And she comes in here with lawyers and neighbors, and… Caleb didn't move. He didn't comfort her. He just stared like he was seeing her clearly for the first time. Give me your phone, he repeated. Vanessa shook her head violently. No. Caleb turned to the liaison and Mr. Holloway. Can we postpone the ribbon cutting? He asked, voice strained. I need to handle something. The liaison nodded quickly.
Yes.
Well, we'll adjust. Vanessa's eyes went wild. Caleb, don't you dare. But it was too late. The truth had stepped into the center, and she couldn't run from it anymore. In the end, she didn't hand over her phone. She stormed out of the room, pushing past staff, mascara starting to smear. People in the lobby turned to stare. The photographer lowered his camera. The music felt suddenly inappropriate. Caleb stood there, shaking, then looked at me with a face I'll never forget. Hurt, guilt, and something like awakening. I'm sorry, he whispered. I nodded, because I couldn't speak yet. That day didn't end with a perfect movie moment. It ended with paperwork. Mr. Holloway got the written acknowledgement signed by Caleb. It reaffirmed my investment, set a clear repayment schedule, and included a clause that any future modification must be signed in person at the attorney's office. No email drafts. No. Oops, I forgot. No Vanessa organizing documents. The clinic went forward with the ribbon cutting later. Awkward, delayed, and noticeably less glamorous without Vanessa front and center. She had left. She didn't come back. And the consequences didn't stop there. Over the next month, Caleb hired an internal accountant to review transactions and access logs. Raymond helped Caleb reset his email security and devices, and guess what? There were logins Caleb didn't recognize. Devices he didn't own. Caleb didn't tell me all the details. He didn't need to. His face said enough. Vanessa tried to call me twice, leaving voicemails that flipped between, I'm sorry if I hurt you, and you destroyed my marriage. Fake apology mixed with blame, the classic. I didn't respond. Caleb filed for a legal separation not long after. He didn't do it dramatically. He did it quietly, like a man choosing to stop bleeding. Vanessa, who had built her identity around being co-founder, also faced a different kind of consequence, reputation. In their circle, word traveled fast. Not about gossip, about the fact that she tried to erase a major investor and got publicly checked. The same people who used to smile at her started asking careful questions. Some partnerships she'd been bragging about, they went cold. No one wants complicated near their business image. As for me, my life changed in a way that surprised me. I didn't become bitter. I became clearer. I still loved my son. I still wanted him to succeed. But I stopped offering love in a way that let people step on me. I started setting boundaries like they were normal, not rude. Caleb and I began rebuilding our relationship slowly. Sometimes we'd sit in a quiet cafe, and he'd talk like he was waking up from a long, confusing dream. I don't know when I stopped trusting my own instincts, he admitted once, staring at his coffee. She always made it sound like you were the problem. I looked at him, heart aching. That's what manipulators do, Caleb. They make everyone else feel guilty, so nobody questions them. He nodded, eyes wet. I'm sorry I didn't defend you. I took a slow breath. I'm not asking you to punish yourself forever. I'm asking you to learn. He did. The repayment started on schedule, exactly as the agreement demanded. Not because I bullied him, because the truth forced structure back into a situation Vanessa had tried to keep foggy. I also made sure something else happened quietly. I updated my estate plan again, naming my executor clearly and making sure any future investments had ironclad protections. I didn't do it because I distrusted my child. I did it because I finally understood something. Love doesn't replace safeguards. Love and safeguards can exist together. 6 months later, the exact kind of time jump that makes life feel like a different season, I attended a small clinic event. Not a grand opening. Just a community health fair they hosted. No cameras. No staged speeches. Just families, staff, and real work. Caleb introduced me to people properly. "This is my mom, Linda," he said, voice steady. She believed in this clinic before anyone else did. No forced smile. No hidden tension. And across the room, I saw Vanessa for the first time since that day. She was there briefly, speaking with someone near the entrance. I don't know why she came. Maybe to pick something up, maybe to show face, maybe to remind herself of what she lost. When she spotted me, her posture stiffened. Her eyes moved to Caleb, then to me, then to the clinic sign on the wall, like it physically hurt her to see that she wasn't the center anymore. And then she noticed Mr. Holloway standing near the back, chatting casually with a local business owner. Vanessa's face went pale. She turned quickly, like she couldn't breathe in that room. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I felt peace. Because I wasn't trying to win a power game anymore. I had simply refused to be erased, and in doing that I got my dignity back, my security back, and, slowly, my son back. Now my life is quieter. I still work. I still protect my future. Caleb visits more often, and when he does, he looks me in the eye like a man who understands what loyalty really means. And Vanessa? She lost two things she thought she could keep forever: control and the illusion that charm can beat paperwork. From everything I went through, I learned that love should never require you to sacrifice your dignity or your safety. If someone keeps telling you you're too sensitive every time you ask reasonable questions, that's not peace. That's manipulation. Protect yourself, document the truth, and don't let anyone rewrite your value. If you've ever gone through something similar or you want to share your own story, write it in the comments below. Don't forget to share this story with your friends, like the video, and subscribe so you don't miss the next stories.